So there's this game called Would You Rather that we used to play. I personally don't care for the game because it would ask you two questions that I'd rather not do either one. For example, would you rather bungee cord or bungee jump off of the Empire State Building or bungee jump off of a bridge with sharks underneath? I'd rather not do either one. How about you? Hi, Koko McDowell here with Life Group Central. And today I just want to talk about what would you rather do? Would you rather be King Saul or little David? Because that's the way he is in my mind. And that's my understanding of Saul and David. There's this big old King Saul and little old David. After listening to the sermon, I'd rather not be either one of them, to be honest with you. But we have the option of free will. We have the option to know what they did, the choices they made, where they fell short, because the Lord has provided us a roadmap. And so in looking at this roadmap, it's causing me to look through this new lens. I did not know that David was a part of Saul's court or in the palace working under Saul for 5 years prior to the whole Goliath story. I did not know that David went back and forth to his hometown and the palace while during those 5 years. So when he actually went to fight Goliath, it wasn't like I thought he was this little boy and he had the food and he didn't know where he was going. And I always wondered, how did he know where to find his brothers? Well, because he had been communicating and in contact with Saul and his army because he was an armor bearer. So he knew. I didn't know that. So my mind was just really awakened when I'm hearing this level of detail that I just bypassed when I read through the Bible. I've read through the Bible 2 times and 1 time chronologically, and I missed it. So now I'm thinking, oh my gosh, so Saul being the king who he was dethroned by God. Like Samuel told him, I'm sorry, you've lost this anointing over you. And then little old David, he's this shepherd boy, but ultimately he commits so many sins, it's not even funny. And yet he has God's heart in mind. Why is that? So the teaching pastors are going to cover David very well. But I want to look at Saul because with Saul, I was like, where did he fall short? Because I kind of feel like I would live in that world more than I would in David's world. And so with Saul, he fell short because of his partial disobedience and his excuses. He was full of excuses. It's kind of like when I was in college, there was a saying. It said, excuses don't excuse, explanations don't explain. I didn't do what I was supposed to do, and that is simply plain. And there you have it. With Saul, when he was given direct instruction to go in and to clean out these different lands, he kept the king, he kept the livestock. And when asked about it, he's like, as if it didn't matter. Completely disregarding the fact that he was told to wipe out these different neighboring cities, these different tribes. He dismissed the whole instruction and took part of it and felt, that's good enough. And so I was thinking when I was processing this, think about Abraham. So obedience, right? Abraham, if you go into Genesis 22, and I'm just going to do the top of it, where it says, sometime later, God tested Abraham. He said to him, Abraham, here I am, he replied. Then God said, take your son, your only son, Isaac, whom you love, and go to the region of Moriah, sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains I will tell you about. Early the next morning, Abraham went. Now, understanding the story of Abraham, God already told him he was going to make a nation out of his offspring. Abraham had every reason and justifiable reason to sit there and question God and say, God, he couldn't have meant that. There's no way he meant for me to do that. Maybe I'll take up another sacrifice. Maybe I'll try this. Maybe I'll come short of what he asked me to do. But Abraham didn't. Not only did he follow through, but he did it early in the morning, right after the instruction. So when I think about Saul and his partial disobedience, and then I think about Abraham who's willing to go the whole way, and look what God did with Abraham, and look what God did with Saul. So I think, would you rather live a life like Abraham, where you will go the whole way of obedience? Or would you rather take the shortcut like Saul and run the risk of losing so much more? Something to think about. We'll see you next time, Dosers.